So, are you interested in plaster art, 3D art, textured art, and have a lot of questions about texture paste, what materials to use, how to go about it, how to mix it, best practices, tips, and tricks? Well, I'm glad you're here because today I'm going to do my very best to put together the most comprehensive texture paste tutorial along with everything I have learned along the way. And perhaps this will be the easiest texture paste tutorial you've ever come across. Before I go on, my name is Baini. I'm an artist. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're not, welcome back. I love to share my process, document my journey, and share art tutorial videos and inspiration tutorials with you. So if you're not subscribed, I hope that you will subscribe because there is a lot to gain on this page. I've got lots of interesting tutorials. I've got lots of just inspiration for you. In the past, I have already shared 2 videos on my texture paste and what that looks like, what my process looks like. So a lot of you who've seen that video, I know you're wondering what's the update, what's new, what haven't you shared in those videos? And I promise you, you want to stick around and keep watching because this is something completely new and perhaps even easier than the videos that I shared in the past. So if you're interested, then let's get into it. Now, a lot of you who have seen my videos and have watched a lot of my process, you know that I work really closely with Plaster. I would even say primarily with Plaster. But over the last couple of months, I've taken the time to really explore a new material so that I can then share my findings with you and share, kind of what I've learned over time. And so I really wanted to take the time before sharing this information, one, to make sure that I'm able to gather my thoughts and learn as much as I can about the product. Now, what product is this, you might ask? It is the USG Easy Stand 90. Now, this is joint compound, I think specifically gypsum, which is a lot different from, I know in the past I've mentioned that I don't really like to use joint compound. And so just to be very clear, when I say I don't like to use joint compound in my mixture, I am speaking specifically about like premixed joint compound, especially the ones I've used, like the DAP joint compound, which shrinks a lot when it dries and tends to crack. And so I'm excited to share a lot about this material, which is a joint compound that literally this is all you need um, to work your art. Now, why do I think this might be the easiest texture paste tutorial video I've ever shared? Because ideally, all you need for this paste is really the joint compound powder and water. Now, I know that with plaster, you have to mix acrylic paint, you have to mix glue into that. And with joint compound, well, specifically Easy Sand 90, all you have to do is water. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of, I guess, an intro into the joint compound that I'm working with. So, specifically, this brand, USG, they do have a lot of joint compounds in this series. I've only used the 90. There are so many others. I've seen 45, I've seen 20. And I have come to understand that the numbers written on them have a lot of meaning. So you want to pay attention to what you're buying because this number tells you how much time you have to work with the product before it becomes unworkable. So in this case, yes, as you've guessed, I have exactly 90 minutes to use my mixture before it turns hard. Unlike plaster, which sets in about 15-20 minutes once you mix it up, this joint compound gives you a lot more leeway, especially if you're buying the 90 minutes, because then you can mix kind of a small batch, enough that you know you're able to use in an hour and a half. and understand that you have exactly 90 minutes. And so what I prefer to do is to mix up a small batch, which I know I can use in 90 minutes and use that up at once. Now, to be very clear with this product, you can also go in and add glue and acrylic paint, which I will show you as well in this video to preserve the working time. Now, once you add glue and acrylic paint to the mix, it pretty much acts like plaster. Then you're able to use it for weeks. You're able to use it for as long as you want. And so, without further ado, I'm going to get into mixing a batch and using it so you're able to see. To get started with mixing, I'm going to be using this mixing spoon, which is 1/4 of a cup. And this is so that a lot of people can have an idea of how to mix. Although I would say specifically with this product, especially seeing that you're only using water with your mixture, um, you can mix how thin or how thick as you like. I've never really used a specific ratio with my paste. A lot of you know that already, but I will use this so that you get an idea of what my ratio is if you're trying to replicate what I'm doing. And so I'm going to start off with my mixing bowl here, and I'm going to mix 1 cup of water. I'm just wiping it quickly so that it can dry. And I mentioned earlier that this took me some time to make this video because I really wanted to make sure I was learning as much as I could about the product. And I've been using this for a couple months now. This is an 18-pound bag and it's pretty much almost done. So I think I can definitely say that I know all, or I know as much as I need to know, or I have a good authority to share about this product. So let's get into it. So I'm going to mix 1, 2, 3, um, and this is about 1 cup. So basically a 1-to-1 joint compound to water ratio. And let's see. As you can see, this is a little runny for my use. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to show you that this is a product that is a little bit more flexible. Do not feel like you need to be locked into how much. If you feel that you don't have enough water, you can always add more water. And in this case, if you have a runny mix like I do, you can always add more joint compound. So let's add more joint compound. So I'm adding another 1/4 cup. Now I'm mixing it up to see. I want it a little bit more thicker, so I'm just going to go in and throw 1 more 1/4 cup of joint compound in there. And I think we're good, or at least I'm good. And a good thing to note is always make sure to check the time as of when you mix. Now, I know it's about 4 p.m. my time, which means that I have until roughly about 5:30 p.m. before this mix becomes unusable. Now, once I have it thoroughly mixed, just like you would your typical plaster mixture, you can go right ahead and use it as is. It dries white, just like your plaster. I'm sure you can see this work next to me. This piece that I have been working on, I have used joint compound, US gypsum or USG 90 for this work. And I've used this for a lot of my projects. It's easy to use. The fact that you only need water and about 90 minutes to use it makes it, I guess, I would say, in my opinion, one of the easiest mixtures you can make. If you mix it too thick, if it's too thick, you can always add some water and just continue to mix. It mixes very well. Now, they also say that this product is easy to sand, and I have to tell you, I completely agree. Now, this is especially for you if you do not like to sand or you have a hard time with sanding. I know that a lot of plaster artists, 3D artists, including myself, we tend to have a love-hate relationship with sanding. You know, it's that one thing that you have to do, but maybe do not really like doing. And so this product makes that easier because it is really easy to sand. When you use this product and it dries and you use sandpaper to start sanding, it falls off a little too easily. I would actually even caution you here that when you're using this joint compound and you're sanding, you run the risk of over sanding. And so just be careful there. But it really works like butter. It falls off very easily. And so you're able to smooth out your work, you're able to make changes. And because I promised you a comprehensive video, I do want to show you more about this product. I want to show you what it looks like to even use the product. And so I'm just going to take some time. Just like plaster, you're able to layer this really easily on your art pieces. It's really easy to smoothen out. It's really easy to blend. It's really easy to sand. And all I've used is water so far. And so I'm going to change the camera angle just so you're able to get a better view of me working with the product. Okay, so I just showed you just a quick video of what using it looks like. It's not very different from plaster. It does have a slightly chalkier texture, which honestly I found a little annoying when I first started using the product, but I quickly got accustomed to. And what happens if you mix a large batch or you don't anticipate that you're able to use it all within 90 minutes? I mentioned earlier that just like plaster, you can mix some acrylic paint and some glue into the mixture. And once you do that, you have a much longer working time. I mean, honestly, you can use it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, as long as you keep it in a tightly sealed container where it's not drying out. And so this is my preferred Tupperware for mixing all of my pasta mixtures, and that's because it comes with a tightly sealed lid. But I do want to show you what that process looks like. You know, if you think to yourself, you know, I love the flexibility that 90 minutes gives me, but maybe I'm thinking 90 minutes is not enough for the mixture that I just made, and I do not want to waste the product. So I'm just going to go ahead right now and add some paint and glue to it so that you can also get a sense of what that process is like, what that process is like. Um, I'm going to keep saying it's not very different from plaster. it is gypsum, and plaster is a derivative of gypsum. And so keep that in mind. But with my experience so far, with my experience so far, this product gives you a lot more flexibility. You can just mix it with water, use that batch up, forget about it, or add paint and glue for a much longer working time. And so what I'm going to do right now is add some acrylic paint and glue to the mixture. I'm going to go in with just a fourth cup of acrylic paint and glue and add that to the mixture. This is about as much glue that I need. I'm just going to get my palette knife since I need it for some additional mixing. And I would say I've not really noticed any difference in terms of when you do go in with the paint and the glue. In the past, I've mixed it with paint and glue from the beginning because I knew that I was mixing up a large batch and will not be able to use in 90 minutes. I've also had instances when I was about maybe 70 minutes in, and I was like, okay, whatever I have here, I'm not going to be able to use up in the next 20 minutes. And so just went in within, like the last quarter and added paint and glue, and it still worked fine. What I will say is do not wait for it to start hardening into stone before you add your paint and glue. You want to add at some point before that, but any point before that should be fine. And so this is my good old white acrylic paint. I'm just going to go in and add another one-fourth of a cup. Now that I have gone ahead and added acrylic paint and glue to my mixture, I can work with this for as long as I want. It's always a good idea to make sure that you mix thoroughly so that you are sure that the mixture is well mixed. And because if you don't, there are parts of it that will harden up if they're not incorporated, or if the glue and the acrylic paint is not incorporated properly. And so you always want to keep that in mind and make sure that you're mixing as thoroughly as possible. But yes, once you add acrylic paint and glue, just like plaster, you have a really creamy, smooth mixture that you can use for a really long time. And so I just wanted to share a more in-depth tutorial with new information, new details. Some of you might already be using this joint compound, and some of you may not be aware of it, but I needed to take some time to learn the product, learn about to use it consistently before sharing details with you. A lot of people might prefer to use this because at the heart of it, you can always mix really small batches and just mix with water. It is, again, very flexible. You can have a really thick mixture if you're looking to build volume. Um, it doesn't shrink and crack as much as your average premixed joint compound. This is a really good product. I will say a lot of you are already aware that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with joint compound, but I will say not this one. With my experience using this product, I haven't really experienced any cracks. I mean, you still have to do, you still have to apply a lot of the basics when it comes to your paste and preventing cracks, which is don't layer too thickly. That would always lead to some sort of crack on the other. Again, don't water too thinly because then you have way more water than actual product, which will compromise the integrity of your joint compound. But it all depends on the application. I know I do get a lot of questions about cracks and the likes, but the truth is, this is art, this is not science. And when it comes to cracks, there's so many things that might cause cracks in your mixture. And so it's always hard for me to diagnose why someone might be experiencing cracks if I have not really looked at their process step by step. The air in your atmosphere might be just a little too dry. It might cause your art to dry too quickly, causing it to shrink a little too quickly. That can also lead to cracks. And so when it comes to cracks, there are so many things, you know, that can lead to cracks. But this right here is a really good product. I really wanted to take my time to test and work with it before sharing with you. And so I think a lot of people might find this to be useful, given that you only need to buy the one product if you have paint and acrylic. If you have paint and glue on hand, great, awesome. You can always add to the mix. It's super flexible, and that way you can work for as long as you want with it. I will say, because I am filming today, I know that I'm not going to be able to use the entire batch in 90 minutes, which is why I wanted to include the paint and the glue, but also just give you a visual of what that looks like. And so I hope that you found this video to be informative. I hope that this was really helpful for you. I will encourage you as much as possible to experiment with a lot of these things in these processes, especially when it comes to creating artwork. A lot of it has to be personal. You're going to have to figure out what works best for you, how you like to use the product. But this is a solid, really solid product that you can rely on. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of artists that are now ditching plaster to work with the Easy Sands joint compound primarily. And so I have had a blast using it myself. I've almost finished an 18-pound bag, and I can tell you it's a really awesome product. If you want to check out any of those products, everything will be linked in the description. Feel free to check it out. I've also mentioned there are so many different types of joint compound made by the same people. So take notice of exactly what number is written next to the bag you're buying. If you're buying USG 45, I believe that means you have 45 minutes to work with the product. Now, 90 minutes is the highest I have seen, and it's the only one I've used. And so I clearly recommend that you get the 90 just because it gives you more of that flexibility. If you have any questions or anything that I haven't answered, please feel free to reach out. Understand that I am completely self taught. And so what I am sharing with you is my own knowledge. I may not be able to answer all of your questions, but as much as possible, I wanted to make sure that I was preempting your questions, giving you ratios, showing you how to use it, what using it looks like. Although a lot of you have seen me use this in the past if you've watched my tutorials, but may not necessarily be aware of what I'm using. So now you have that official introduction into the product. And now I also get other questions like, I mixed my mixture, added glue, acrylic paint. Over time, it still kind of got hard. I will say, keep that in mind. Right now, what I have is a really creamy, malleable texture. But by next week, when I open this container, would I be able to do this with it? No. It's going to be more of, it's going to be a little bit more caked, right? And a lot of you might have experienced that. But one thing is, it is absolutely usable. What you'll have will be more of a thicker type paste because the water does evaporate, right? It does that to dry out a little bit, but you can always introduce water into the mixture as long as you already have paint and acrylic glue in it. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos working with plaster or what my plaster mixture tutorial looks like, you should definitely check those out. I share details about what my plaster mixture looks like. It's pretty similar to this. But if you're interested in knowing, more specifically what working with plaster is or what that process looks like, feel free to check out those videos. If you're interested in shopping any of my pieces or my artworks, all of the links will be left in the description. You should definitely head on over to my website. As a reminder, if you haven't subscribed, now would be a good time to subscribe. You already see that I am working on really interesting things. This is a really large piece that I'm currently working on, and I'm working on a lot of other pieces on the behind the scenes as well. So just hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so that you're aware when I publish a new video. I promise you lots of tutorials, ideas, and inspiration coming your way. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.